Thank you for listening to the Ramble On Podcast Network. The following podcast was produced by members of the Highland Rambler from Highland High School in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Hey.
I'm Malia Hansen. I'm a junior and I'm Asian and Pacific Islander.
And I'm Abby Khatri. I'm a senior at Highland and I'm Nepali.
And welcome to our podcast about the BIPOC experience at Highland High, the BIPOC-cast.
Every episode will feature a different community and a student from that community. Today we'll be talking about the Indigenous community here at Highland.
Joining us today, we've got Kayden.
Hello. My name is Kayden. I am a sophomore at Highland.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
So our first question is, what is the Indigenous community's place at Highland?
I was actually really wondering about this question. I was wondering what you guys mean by place.
So we mean in terms of representation and visibility, do you see Indigenous people being, or your stories being told at school, or your culture being celebrated, things like that? How do you see that at Highland?
Well, to start off, in elementary and then middle school, I've never really met Native American students or administrators at all. So I think coming to Highland and really expressing our culture was really cool. And I've been performing for Highland lately, and it's just an amazing experience. And I feel like the Native American culture can be outspoken more a little bit. And I feel like our culture is very well shared among just talking from friend to friend, talking about our powwows, talking about our traditional foods, just things like that. So.
Yeah. Do you think Indigenous students face any unique struggles at school?
I don't think none that I've heard of, but I'm sure there are some out there. And I do want to meet Native American students so that we can help them if they do have those struggles. So.
Have you been able to connect with many other Native American students at Highland?
I can only pick out a handful, but I would love to meet more Native American students. Even just a simple, hey.
Yeah. What are some ways that, you mentioned that you've performed for Highland, so could you talk about your experience doing that?
Performing for Highland was more of an ask, hey, we noticed that you did this. Can you come do it at our show, please? And it was just an amazing experience. I would bring in real drummers, real powwow drummers, so that you can feel the actual experience of what it's like to be at a powwow. And the time and effort that's put into it just really shows how much our culture really means to us. And I think performing out there, there's just all the students are really cool. You could just hear them cheering, and on stage I couldn't really hear them, but when I look back on videos, it's just whoa, everyone was cheering. Yeah, they were very welcoming towards it, and they were just really excited to see the full performance come together.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I don't know. I guess, do you feel like there's a bunch of support for the Native American community?
Yeah, it's really cool to see that support, and especially that encouragement to go out for these Native American gatherings, powwows, and to just really spread that Native American culture.
That's awesome. Do you feel like, do you feel like there's that kind of representation within administration and teachers and staff?
Yeah, I feel like they get excited. That's what I've seen throughout my years, 2 years at Highland. That's what I've seen. Everyone gets so excited to learn about the Native American culture, and they're just really they share a lot of stuff with me too about our history. So it's awesome.
That's amazing. I'm just like so glad to hear that there's a bunch of support and like love. That's awesome. Kind of moving on to our second question. We'd just like to ask, what's a stereotype that your community faces, and then what's harmful about it?
There's not much I could point out. I don't really know, because I don't really pay attention to those stereotypes. It's more of like, I get to the facts. If I hear something wrong, then it's like, oh wait, hold up, let me tell you this. So
Straight to the point.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, how do you feel about like Native American history being taught at school? Because I feel like there's not a lot of it that's taught.
Yeah, that's what I feel too. And I feel like it would be cool if we can extend that unit to be longer so that we can really get in depth in it. Because there's a lot of history books out there about Native Americans. And I in fact have read some here that my mom and dad have suggested to me, and it's just a little sad to know that some schools don't actually teach that, when they can teach other subjects that's a lot like that. So
Yeah. Do you have like favorite, I don't know, things you'd want to share about history?
let's see. I think I really tend to learn or teach and learn about the Long Walk. There's a lot of sources out there about it, but I just love hearing it from my grandparents, whose great grandparents or their grandparents have gone through. So that's one thing I like to learn about.
Yeah, could you share a little bit about that for people who don't know what that is?
Yeah, the Long Walk, or how some people can say is the Trail of Tears. It is just like the name. It's a huge walk that soldiers have taken Native Americans out of the Navajo Nation, and they just go on this long walk to try to kill them off. If you're sick, if you were injured, or even showed the slightest bit of weakness, you were killed off immediately. It was really bad, and this went on for years. And we still fight for our land today. So, yeah, that's a little bit about the Long Walk.
Thank you for sharing. And this is more related to what we were talking about earlier, but since people won't know, when we're talking about the performances you do, could you talk about what type of dance it is you do and like how long you've been doing it?
Yeah. So I actually do like 3 different dances that are involved in the Powwow community. So the ones I've been mainly performing is the hoop dance. The hoop dance is a storytelling dance. It's represented through hoops, and with the hoop dance, you can use your imagination. You can probably see a monster. You can probably see a house or birds, nature, things like that. Those dances are taught in modern way, and in terms of there's modern and traditional hoop dance. The modern hoop dance involves more than one hoop, while the traditional involves only one hoop. And these dances can be danced to powwow music, or you could do it with your tribal music. So like I could dance with my Navajo songs. So, and then the fancy shawl, that one's a more of a modern type of dance in the powwow community. It has evolved from the men's fancy dance, which is the traditional way. So the women's fancy dance, it represents the butterfly. The pace is probably just a tad bit slower than the hoop dance. and it could probably go about as long as the hoop dance as well. And with this one, you have a shawl that's colorful. It really depends on the dancer's color preference on what they want, but there's no specific type. Everyone's different. And the way they dance is more graceful, and they're more on their toes most of the time. And it's just an amazing dance. And then the jingle dress dance, another woman's dance. This one's the most traditional one out there. This one's a healing dance. It's said that when you hear those dancers dancing, you can hear rain when the jingles hit each other. And it's just an amazing experience to go out to one of those jingle dress gatherings and just hear all